I was in a place where I think a lot of people actually are, which is done a lot of cool stuff. I have some great experiences to share, but I don't quite know how to express it in a way that will get employers or partners excited. Get into a couple secrets. This is my special sauce, y'all. I'm giving away the sauce, the drip. We're gonna talk about 3 secrets that you can use to jumpstart your resume building process. Woo! Now let's actually go through some examples of before and after. So let's tie all of this together so that you guys can actually see what does it look like to actually write a good resume versus a resume that needed a little love and care. And I think that if you answer those 4 key points in the beginning of the interview is done, and the rest of the interview is just a formality. It's loaded, baby. I'm giving you guys the major keys. You feel me? I'm trying to make sure everybody gets this money, y'all.
So Malik is a product marketing manager at Facebook, where he conducts research, builds and launches new features, and also works on marketing campaigns for the company. He is, however, passionate about the power of technology, building great businesses, and helping to groom young people into leaders of tomorrow. He has personally coached and mentored 100+ college and high school students all over the world, from Harvard to Ghana. He has also worked at reputable organizations such as Morgan Stanley and Black Lotus Ventures, just to mention a few. Without wasting much time, I'll just hand over to Malik to begin today's session.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Like I said, my name is Malik. I actually know Diana very well. We met several years ago when we were both doing programs at Google, and since then we've just stayed in contact, and I've had a blast, seeing how much Yaa has grown and how many people have come through the program. And so I just wanted to use this time to share some of my wisdom with you guys so that you can benefit. And so before we actually go through today's session, I actually want to tell you a little bit about my story, because a lot of times when you hear that, I work at Facebook and I've worked for all these top companies and all that stuff, that may feel a little distant from where you are, or maybe it may feel aspirational, who knows. But I think I want to tell you where I came from so that you can understand how important this work today actually is. And so I was someone who has always been very entrepreneurial in everything that I do. From Senegal, so you already know, if you've ever been abroad or you see always Senegalese people are always selling something, and so I was a big entrepreneur. But when I actually discovered what was possible from a corporate perspective, I hadn't taken the time to build my resume or document my experiences. And so I was in a place where I think a lot of people actually are, which is, I've done a lot of cool stuff. I have some great experiences to share, but I don't quite know how to express it, how to formulate it, or how to articulate it in a way that will get employers or partners excited. And because of that, I actually faced a lot of difficulty for a very long time. For over 1.5 years, I was getting rejected from every single job that I applied to. Right? I'm talking hundreds of applications, countless hours being spent applying to jobs nonstop. I'm writing cover letters. I'm giving it my all. I'm trying my hardest, and I'm not getting any progress. And this is after being someone who started his own company in high school and grew it online. So I knew I had some good experience, but for some reason, nobody was giving me a chance. And so to solve that problem, I started figuring out, okay, well, there's obviously something that I don't know. So let me try to connect with people and learn from them so that I can see how can I change my approach to start getting different results. And so that's what I did. I started reaching out to people in my college, people who were on the student council and the student government. I went to every single career event that the school actually had throughout the entire fall semester. So if there were 3 in one day, I sat there for 3 hours taking notes, learning about these companies, how they hired, who they hired, how much they paid, all of that stuff. And I just fully immersed myself in this environment. And each step along the way, I would get little nuggets of feedback from people. I'd be like, oh, okay, well, I got to do this on my resume to frame it this way. Or I learn about oh, the recruiter is only going to look at your resume for these few things and it's really about XYZ. And so I started getting all these little gems and nuggets of information along the way from people who are only one step ahead of where I was. And it was those gems that I was able to actually put together so that I could actually have a successful resume. And that's actually what got me to where I am today. And so I feel like there's so many people, so many young people especially, who are so talented, who are so smart, and I know a lot of you fall into that category if you're on this call today. But I want to make sure that you guys know what the recruiter is actually thinking about as they're going through your resume, so that you feel prepared to actually sell your experiences and let them know why you are the best person for them to hire. So we're going to go through showcasing impact on your resume and why it makes a difference. And so this session is really going to focus on, okay, if you just finished an internship or if you're getting ready for recruiting season, how do you actually put pen to paper and write a good resume? That's what this session is going to be focused on. And if you guys do have questions, you can drop them in the chat or ping them to Afuya. And then I'll try to answer those after the session, or we can follow up offline, and I have a link that you guys can fill out where we can just connect and go through that together, okay? So with that, let's get started. So the first thing I wanted to actually talk about is this concept of impact, right? Because with your resume, you have to actually put yourself in the mindset of the actual recruiter, right? Like, your job is to show that you are the best candidate and to get them to give you an interview, right? You want to get them excited about what you actually bring to the table. And so to get them excited, you have to show impact, because at the end of the day, they're trying to figure out, is this the person who can actually do the job? Do they have the skills to do it? Are they someone who I want to work with? Are they someone who has the aptitude to continue learning and growing once they start the job? And do they have the experience to speak to all of those things so that I know they have proof of concept for the work that they want to do? And so to do that, you actually have to show impact. And so what is impact? Impact happens when you can clearly articulate what you did in your job, how you did it, and why it matters. That's all you need to know about resume writing. Your job is to communicate those three things: what you did, how you did it, why it matters. If you can tell me those three things, then I know everything I need to know to make a decision on whether or not you are the right person to join this company. Because if I need someone who is going to be doing, Excel modeling and analysis, I need to know what previous modeling experience you have. What was the level of complexity of the things that you were dealing with, and why does it matter? What kind of impact did you achieve? Did you do a good job? Did your manager like it? Did it get used in some important reports? Like, how should I know how to think about these experiences? That's what we're going to get through today. Okay? All right. And so again, why does showing impact even matter? Why does it matter? Why do you have to spend hours crafting the right words on your resume to make sure that you get through the door? Well, one thing that you have to consider is that your recruiter is actually only going to spend 6 seconds skimming your resume. And in those 6 seconds, they're trying to figure out, they're looking for things to tick off mentally in their head on, is this someone who could be a good fit? Is this someone who's ticking off all the boxes? Is this someone who could outperform all the other candidates? So if you only have 6 seconds to make an impression, then you have to make sure that you're doing that mindfully. So cool. So what do you actually need to do to make their lives easier, right? Because they're only reading your thing for 6 seconds, right? So how do you make a splash? Well, one, you have to be clear and succinct. So this is so important. Don't waste words on your resume, because people are skimming through it. They want to get the high level. Don't add a lot of needless adjectives right? Focus on the impact and explaining yourself as succinctly as possible and to a point where anybody can understand it. And that gets into the second and third points, which is like, make it easy for them to understand what value you bring to the table. So a lot of times recruiters are not going to be super technical. They're going to understand the job and what it actually takes to do the job, but they're not doing the jobs themselves. And so sometimes if you get too much into the details of what you're doing, it may not actually resonate. So you want to use words that all recruiters can understand so they can get the value that that you bring to the table. And they should not, anyone reading your resume should not have to know all the very specific details of your industry to actually understand what you did and why I should care. Like, I don't need to know everything about investment banking to understand that if you did, if you put together X number of models for deals that were worth X number of millions of dollars, that you had a good impact, right? So use things that anybody, no matter what job you have, can understand how successful you were. And then the biggest thing that we'll talk about as well is using numbers to quantify your impact. So quantification is important because that just removes the bias, right? Because working on a $10 deal is not the same thing as working on a $100,000 deal, which is not the same thing as working on a $1 million deal, right? And so you want to actually make sure that you're showing people numbers wherever you can so that they can understand how much impact did you actually achieve. Okay. All right. So the question is like, all right, well, you need to show an impact. We know why impact is important. How do we actually do that? Well, for every experience, we're going to go through these questions, which is what you do, your role, your responsibility, whatever outputs that you produced, and what your deliverables were. The next thing is like, why did you actually do it? What goal were you trying to achieve? Why should anyone care that you did this? Why did this matter to your manager, to your company, to your coworkers, to your club, right? And then the third thing is, how did you actually do it? Like, what skills did you leverage throughout the process? What was the process that you actually went through? And then the fourth thing is going to be, what measurable impact did you have? And how can those numbers give us some perspective? And so if you actually answer all of these 4 questions, you will have everything you need for a strong resume and for a strong interview, because the whole interview is trying to answer these 4 questions in some level of capacity, right? So you should be using these 4 questions to brainstorm, and I actually have a template that I'm going to share with you that you can actually use to brainstorm. But sit down and actually go through each of your internships, each of your leadership positions with clubs, each, side project that you've done in your community, at home, each little business that you started, even if you're just selling food here and there, like, no matter how small it is, write it down and like be like, okay, what did I actually do? I produced this type of output. I created some flyers. Oh, okay. I created a website. I created a research report. I created a PowerPoint. Okay, great. What was the goal of doing all that? Like, why did I even have to create a PowerPoint, a report, all this? Like, why did I have to do this, and why should anyone care? Why did this matter, right? Well, it was actually going to be really important to, achieve new partnerships for the company that I was working on, because they needed partnerships to grow their business. I was like, okay, great. So that's already showing me some impact. And what skills did you leverage? Well, I used my communication skills. I used my graphic design skills. I used my analytical skills. Okay, great. And then what numbers do you have? Well, 20 people saw my flyer, or 100 people signed up for my link, or whatever the case is, right? Like, if you can answer all of those questions for everything that you've done in your career so far, you'll have everything that you need to sell your experiences, to make an impact, and to get recruiters excited about bringing you onto the team. And I actually try to use this as a framework for all the interview questions that I have. And then I tie it back into why it prepared me for this job that I'm applying for right now, okay? So the next thing is, if we're actually going through this brainstorming process, it's like a lot of people sometimes they get stumped because, the internship or the job, they did so many things and it was so long ago and there was a lot of things involved in it. And so they don't know where to start in terms of listing out things that they did. And sometimes you don't even think that what you did was actually important. you don't even think that what you did was actually like, oh, is this actually worth writing down? Are recruiters going to be interested in this? Is this next job going to be interested in this? And so this is a list of things that you can start brainstorming for impact, or for resume bullets, or for things that you actually did. All of these things are ways that you can make an impact on a job. And this is not an exhaustive list, but it's meant to help you in your brainstorming, and you can build off of this. So if you led a project, we want to capture that. If you managed a project, if you brought something to life, right? You proposed something and you implemented it, or you saved time or money for the business. That is very key. The next thing is like if you actually improved the process, like maybe something wasn't working, maybe they were using some very old systems, or they weren't supporting the customers in the right way, and so you came in and you actually improved their process for them. Or is it that you increased customer satisfaction, right? Like you actually like made sure that customers were happy, that you supported them, you answered their questions, you called them, whatever the case is, you collaborated with the team, you supported customers. If you conducted research, so that means even just Googling stuff or collecting comments on LinkedIn or whatever the case is, all of that is very valuable. If you wrote a report of any type, even if you wrote a report for school, that's good. That's good stuff to actually include in your resume as well, because it actually shows that you were doing research, and it shows that you can think critically, and it shows that you have a perspective. And so we can actually include that on the resume too. And then if you achieved anything, if you were awarded, like I think Yaa has an award, Yaa W has an award for the most improved student, or the #1 student in the tech track and finance track, or based off of your pre-post assessment. You can include that in your resume as well. And I think we already have some bullets for the Yaa W program that you guys can use. Or if you were selected to even be in a program, the fact that you are in Yaa W is important. So I know a lot of you are attending conferences and you're putting that on your LinkedIn, on your resume. Great job on that. If you were selected from 100 applicants for this program, and there were only 10% of people selected, put that on your resume, because that lets people know that you're special and that you worked hard to get where you are. And if you completed any training, which goes right back to all the Yaa W programs as well, right? Did you complete 100 hours of training? Did you complete 200 hours, 50 hours? What was the training actually on, right? These are all things that you can actually look at to actually brainstorm for the future, okay? So these are things that you can use to start thinking about potential bullets that you can actually write down on your resume. So the next thing is like, how do you actually structure that, right? Like you have the questions, you have the brainstorm, you know what you need to do. So how do you actually like start that? Well, this is the template that I actually used. And I actually use this for my job. So anytime we do performance reviews every 6 months, I go back to this template and I list out what are all the different projects that I worked on. If I worked on a website, I worked on managing an Instagram channel, I worked on some research, all that stuff. I list it out, and then I think about like, what type of project is this? Like what are different things, that key themes that actually came up in the project, right? Is this a research project? Is this a marketing project? Is this a design project? Is this a financial analysis project? Is this a nonprofit project? Is this a community leadership? Like all those different types of projects, like write that down. And then you're gonna go through what you did, listing it out in bullet point format, and then how you did it, what impact did you achieve, and what were the skills that you applied. And the goal here is to be as detailed as possible so that you can actually go back to this when you're preparing for your interviews, and now you have a guide to actually talk about when they say, oh, tell me about your time in the Yaa W program. You can be like, yes, Yaa W is a program that allows some of the top talent in Ghana to take finance and technology program, educational programs, and I was selected to be in it. And we worked on a number of programs, from technical skills training to actually community building and community service. And I got a chance to leverage a lot of different skills there, from learning how to be resilient, to learning how to work with a team, to learning how to work effectively in a remote world, since a lot of this program was actually conducted virtually. And that's why I feel like this really prepared me for this internship at this bank, because I got a chance to make a really big impact here, which I'm happy to talk more about if you have any questions, right? So easily you can come up with a statement just like that if you're just looking at your spreadsheet. You're looking at what you did, your skills, and what's your impact. And so when you're communicating in your interview, you already know what are the key things that you actually need to say. And you can actually use this to build your talking points. And then when you look at this, you can actually have the job description side by side. And so you can look at everything that they're looking for in the job description, and you can highlight specific things in your spreadsheet or on your resume that you want to emphasize, you want to talk about, because they were very important. They translate directly to the job. Okay. So that is the template. And like I said, this is going to be included in the presentation. I'm happy to send this out. You just let me know your email, and then we'll send this out for you. Okay. And so now let's get into a couple secrets. This is my special sauce, y'all. I'm giving away the sauce, the drip. You know what I'm saying? And we're gonna talk about 3 secrets that you can use to jumpstart your resume building process. Secret number 1 is don't start from scratch. Okay, so use that spreadsheet, write down the bullets. A lot of people think that, oh, I need to work on my resume, and so they think they're gonna just sit down and start writing it. That is not the case. The biggest thing that you're actually going to be doing when you're working on your resume is actually reflecting. You're going to sit down and you're going to reflect on your actual experiences, and you're going to be thinking about all the stuff that you did and how you can surface it. So list out all the projects. And then what I like to do is I go to jobhero.com and I look up if I'm going for a financial analyst job, or I'm going for an investment banking job, or I'm going for a web designer, a graphic designer intern. I'll look up that job title or very similar job titles on Google and on Job Hero, and I try to find resume templates to see how are other people describing their impact. This is very important because it gives you a starting point, and it lets you know what vocabulary people are using in the industry. Vocabulary is very, very, very important because you want to speak the same language as the people that you're actually working for, or that you actually want to work for, to show them that you're a part of the community, you're a part of the tribe. So knowing the right words to use to express your experiences is going to be key, because it's going to set off little triggers in your recruiters or in your hiring manager's mind to let you know that, yep, this is the perfect person for this company. Okay. And then I take things a step further, because Job Hero is very generic. So a lot of that stuff is actually coming from, random resume writers or sometimes computers, but they have some really good generic templates that you can use as a starting point, especially when you're new to the industry and you want to figure out what are some of the key words. And the goal when you do that is not to copy what you see on Job Hero, but to see how are they talking about the job, and then is there anything that they say in the resume that you also did in your experience that you want to capture. Okay, that's what the goal of Job Hero is. The next thing is I go to LinkedIn, and LinkedIn search is a really, really, really powerful tool. All you got to do is I literally just go to LinkedIn and I just search whatever job it is that I'm looking for. And then I go to the filter section and I filter it by the companies that I actually want to work for, the companies where I want to see people who work for those companies. And then I click to their profile and I read their entire profile and I see how are they actually talking about their job. So if I want to work at Facebook, I'm going to go search product management or product marketing at Facebook, and then I'll go through everyone's profile who is a product marketer at Facebook and see how do they describe their job. Okay, what are the key things that they're emphasizing? Okay, what are the buzzwords that they're using? How are they quantifying their impact? This is really important because it shows you how people in industry are actually talking about the role, and it actually shows you, what's happening from a modern perspective, right? How are people who are in industry, who are actively doing it, showcasing their impact? And that's going to let you know what's most important in that role as well, which you can use as talking points for when you're interviewing, or to make connections to why your previous experiences prepared you for this new job, which is, again, everything that we're doing for here is we're trying to convince them that our previous experiences prepared us for our new job. Okay. And when you do this, when you use Job Hero in Google and then you cross-reference that with LinkedIn, anybody, and you can even look for people who went to your schools, or people who are in specific regions, or people who are at specific levels. It allows you to get a head start. You don't have to start from scratch. And you can be confident in how your resume is looking because you have a reference from people who are exactly where you want to be, who are working the job that you want to work. They're already there, and they're already showing you how they write their resume, so you can use that to improve your resume as well, okay? So that is secret number 1. Don't start from scratch, all right? Secret number 2, the bullet point formula. So this is a very simple formula that I'm sure all of you guys know, but essentially you lead with the action verb, which is what you like describing like the specific role that you had to take, and then the next thing in there is what you actually did, and then you talk about the impact, so why you did it and the impact that you achieved. Sometimes you may not be able to fit this template exactly, and that's okay, but the goal is to use it as a guide as you're writing your resume. And we have some examples in here where we're actually going to show you some before and after examples of some people's resumes so that you can see what that actually looked like. But first you start with your action verb, which should be very strong and very clear to what you did. So proposed, implemented, led, liaised, triaged, whatever. We'll have all that in there. And then what you did, why you did it, and what impact did you actually achieve. And again, why you did it and the impact that you achieved, sometimes that can be redundant, so feel free to use one or the other as needed. You want to flex this to align to whatever your truth is. So the next thing is going to be actually quantifying everything that you're actually doing on your resume. And so these are the different questions that allow you to think about how you can actually quantify your experience. Don't be afraid to actually estimate your impact when you're quantifying. It is okay. If you don't know exactly the number, all that matters is that you're not saying anything that is crazy, right? Like if you helped, let's say I did a project where we gave out a bunch of meals to some people. Let's say in reality, I actually gave out 150 meals, right? And then on my resume, I say 100 meals or 200 meals. Like that's not a big deal, right? Because plus or minus 50, like it's in the same general ballpark, right? But if you're talking about, if you gave out 150 meals and now you say, oh, I gave out 400 meals, all right, that's way too liberal of an estimate, and that's several factors right ahead of what you actually did. So you can estimate, but make sure you give yourself a nice little standard deviation so that you can feel comfortable when you're talking about this in the actual impact. So some key questions to ask yourself when you're actually thinking about how do I actually put numbers to my resume? Well, if you led a project, how many people are on your team, right? A lot of you are students, so you're leading projects at school. So if you led a project of 10 people, if you had 10 people on your team and you were the main one who was leading the project, that's very important. That shows leadership, that shows collaboration, that shows teamwork. Let me know there were 10 people on the team. If you did a presentation, how many people attended the presentation? Were there 50 people? Were there like 20 staff, 20 students? Let me know, right? If you save time, how much time did your project save? Did you implement a process that helped people save like 5 minutes per appointment? You know what I'm saying? Like, is that something that you did? Write that down. If you improved the process, like how did it actually help the company, right? Which is a big deal. If you did research, how many articles or sources did you review? Did you review 30 articles? Did you review 50 articles, right? And how many pages were actually in your report? I reviewed 30 articles to create a 10-page report on the economic future of cryptocurrency in Ghana, right? That's a great resume bullet because it's very specific. I know exactly what you did. I know how you did it. You reviewed, 30 pages and you reviewed 30 different articles and sources. And then I know what the impact was because you created a 10-page white paper report on this specific topic, which shows me that, you're a very good analytical person and a researcher, okay? So that's how you should think about it. If you created a flyer or any type of marketing materials or even if you posted something in a WhatsApp group, because I know a lot of students and a lot of people use WhatsApp to connect and to form communities. So if you create a flyer that you posted in your WhatsApp group, talk about that. Like, I designed a flyer to promote an event that was happening, and it reached over 300 people in 24 hours. Because if you posted it in the WhatsApp group and there are 300 people in the WhatsApp group, and that's how many people your message actually reached. Did all of them see it? We don't know, but we know how many people that we reached. We know how many impressions we had, which is the amount of people who could potentially see it, which is a key measurement that we use in marketing, right? So you see, in that one section, I just tied through everything that we talked about, because I know that reach and impressions are important to talk about from a marketing perspective, because I went on Job Hero and I went on LinkedIn and I learned the vocabulary that people in industry are using. And if I saw reach and impressions for the first time and I didn't know what those meant, I just went on Google and I learned about, what does reach mean in marketing? What does cost per acquisition mean in marketing? Okay, that's a good way to show impact, and that's a good way to understand how my work is doing. Great. And so now, I just took that. It was very specific. It was based off of learning how people in the industry talk, and it clearly quantified my impact. And I was able to estimate how many people I reached, and so people know like what is the impact of my work and what I'm capable of doing. Okay, and then again, like if you were selected to be in a program, how many people applied, how many people were selected, right? A 1% acceptance rate and the 20% acceptance rates are both impressive because you're still a part of the minority, right? But they're not the same level of impact. So make sure that you do your homework on that. And then if you completed training, like I said, how many hours? If you helped with sales, how much money did you help make, right? And this is something that we did with a lot of the Yaa W students to actually work on their resumes and figure out how we could do that. And so definitely feel free to reach out to people who previously went through the Yaa W program so that you can see their resumes and use that as a reference for how you guys are creating your resumes, okay? Now, we have finished the 3 secrets. Woo! Yay! But now let's actually go through some examples of before and after. So let's tie all of this together so that you guys can actually see what does it look like to actually write a good resume versus a resume that is that needed a little love and care that we actually worked on. Okay, and so let's go through that together. So first thing is let's just talk about like the before. Right, so this person was an animation and videography intern. He's actually based in Namibia, and so if you just focus on the top part, they're saying using creativity to develop solutions for advertising solutions. That doesn't make sense. That's not a clear sentence. You're using solutions for solutions. I don't know what you're talking about. Working as a part of a team to provide ideas for artistic direction of commercial campaigns. How many ideas? How many people were on the team? How many people did the commercial reach? How many commercials did you work on? What were the commercials about? You see all of those questions that are not answered by the bullet, right? Number 3, patiently dealing with clients to make changes to provide better quality services. That's actually a pretty good bullet. It lets me know that you're patient, you know client management. Great, but how many clients did you actually work on? And what were the services that you were actually providing? Oh, okay, motion graphics, visual design, filming, and video editing used to deliver artistic execution. Great, but it took me so long to get the full picture. You want to make sure that people are actually getting the picture right head on, okay? So the first thing you'll notice is that we changed the format on this to make it clean. He has the address listed on his first bullet. You don't need to put the address. I don't even think you need to put the city of where you worked, but you can if you have extra space. But if you need to save space, don't be afraid to cut that off, okay? The next thing that we did is we changed the title. You can actually change your titles and get creative on that with your resume. If you feel like there's a better way to more generally communicate what you did. So I would not change your title just to falsely achieve status or to falsify what you actually did. But if people would not fully understand your impact because of a title, you can tweak the title a little bit to make sure that your impact is generally understood, right? And then we also added in the actual team that he worked on the space dimensions team. And we made sure to use bolding, right, as well as different typography styles like italics and regular type and bolding, to actually emphasize different parts of the resume. So just with changing the style and presentation, it makes it easier to like skim through the resume, because the first thing you see is animator and director, cool, and then your eye scans to Ministry of Health, cool, and then you see September to December 2017. So I just got all the key information that I need just by scanning it in a couple seconds, because I leverage bolding, italics, and typography intentionally. Don't bold everything. Don't type everything. Don't make sure everything's in italics, but use it to emphasize key points. Okay. Now let's talk about the actual bullets. Instead of using creativity to develop solutions, we actually talk about how you led the creative direction and you conducted market research for a national radio campaign designed to increase brand awareness. Huge difference, because now it's specific. Now I know exactly what you did. Now I know the impact of your work because it's a radio campaign. And now I know why it matters, because it was supposed to increase the amount of people who knew about the brand. This is what a good resume bullet looks like. The next bullet says oversaw strategy, which is the thinking, and the execution, which is making sure that everybody can do what they need to do, of a commercial for the Ministry of Health to help them increase awareness of human trafficking. So this is very specific. It's talking about the creative strategy behind the commercial, and it's actually talking about what you're doing on set if you're actually producing commercials, right? And then saying who it's for. It's important to note that this is for the Ministry of Health. So here, we're not quantifying anything. There's no numbers, but it lets you know how important the work is, because we're talking about the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education, Arts, and Culture. Right? So you can show impact by showing who this work is associated with without necessarily showing what was the actual the numbers involved. Okay. And the next thing is we filmed and produced a documentary on entrepreneurship for the Ministry of Education, Arts, and Culture. And then the responsibilities included conducting surveys, voice acting, copywriting, storyboarding, producing, editing, and pitching. This is just such a night and day difference. I don't need to explain it to you guys. You guys see it. If you were the hiring manager, you probably want to hire number 2 a lot more than number 1, because you feel more comfortable in the fact that number 2 can actually deliver on the job, which is what we wanted to do. So specific quantification, showing the impact, and letting people know why you did what you did is so important. The why is the most important thing. Let's go through another example. Same guy, different experience. So he worked at a chocolate concierge, and I think this is such a good one, because I know even a lot of the Yaa W students, you may have like quote unquote small jobs. I don't think that there are small jobs. It's only your thinking that makes it small. So this guy was actually selling chocolate at a store. That was his job. He was a chocolate concierge. People would walk in and they would just buy expensive chocolate in New York. It's crazy, but that's what it is. So we did a couple things to change this resume. So let's go through the before, and then we'll go to the after and the changes. So first thing is like chocolate concierge. I don't know what that is. I have no idea what you mean by chocolate concierge. But if you talk about chocolate salesperson, I know what you're talking about. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, cool. You did sales. Sales is good, because if I'm a sales recruiter, I know if you can sell one thing, you can sell anything. So any job you do, if you're doing front desk, customer service, greeting people, that's all sales. And if you can do that, you can apply that to any kind of job. So never underestimate that. And so now let's get into the actual bullets. Selling chocolate by welcoming clients to the world of Vosges au chocolat. Vosges, I don't know. It's some type of French thing. Au chocolat, right? So selling chocolate by welcoming clients there. Okay, cool. Very general. Using customer service to provide a wow experience while sharing information on the types of chocolate. That's very specific. I actually like that. But I think that there's ways that we can use different vocabulary to make that more exciting. Okay, managing stock and maintaining boutique cleanliness. Sure, that is a normal responsibility. And then counting the cash register and closing the boutique at the end of the day. Great stuff. But again, let's put ourselves into the eyes of the job that we actually want, not just what we did. This is why you're gonna have to have your resume tracker as well as the job description of the job that you want on the same page, looking at it, trying to figure out how do you actually communicate appropriately. So now let's talk about the after. I just talked to you guys about changing the title if you actually wanted to show more clear impact. This is an example of where we did that. Instead of chocolate concierge, we changed it to luxury chocolate sales because that clearly communicates the impact in a few seconds. Because this is not regular chocolate, this is expensive chocolate. And it's not just concierge, it's actually sales, right? So now you're doing sales. Great. The next thing is he said, I sold chocolate by welcoming clients into the world. Awesome. But how much chocolate did you sell, and how much is that relative to how much the store does on a regular basis? Like, how do I know how much impact you made by helping the store sell? Well, we actually found out that the average, order that they actually had was $200 for every person who came in there to buy chocolate, right? And they actually had a lot of people, like tens and tens of people coming in every day, spending on average $200 per session, right? So over the course of 2 years, if we just said, okay, if 10 people a day came in and they spent $200 a day, and that means I'm already, that's already $2,000 of sales that I'm generating. So I already now know I'm making $2,000 a day. And I'm working 3 days a week, 4 weeks out of a month. So now I know I'm making $6,000 a week, 4 weeks out of the month. And so now I'm doing $6,000 a week for 4 weeks. That's $24,000 a month. Okay, great. And so we did $24,000 a month for 12 months. 12 times 20. I can't do math off the top of my head. It's probably like 20,000, 200,000, some type of big multiple. So $200,000 about in 1 year. Now, if you work there for 2 years, now we know that you actually sold 10 people a day, $200 per order, $24,000 a month, and you made $500,000 for the store over 2 years. You didn't make any of that money. You probably only made a couple dollars, but you helped the store make that much money, and you didn't do anything special. It's just that what you were selling was really expensive, and you tried your best to do a really good job. And so that's how you ended up generating $500,000 in revenue just selling chocolate. Oh, and then how much sales did the company, do on a regular basis? Is this a big number for that company, or is it a small number for that company? Well, we actually found out that they had a team of salespeople, and this person was actually outperforming everybody else by 75%. And every day they said, you got to sell at least 5 boxes of chocolate, and he was selling 10. So it's like, that's a big deal, and that's why that whole section is in bold. Because if you only read that section of the resume and you know that I was able to sell $500,000 worth of chocolate, and I was one of the best salespeople, you already know everything you need to know about why you should hire me. That's such a unique story, right? And even if you didn't sell $500,000 and you only sold 20 cities worth of chocolate, that's okay. Put it on there because it shows that you're entrepreneurial and you're willing to start something from scratch. So even if you got 5 people to buy your thing for 5 cities each, that's okay. Write it down and let people know that I tried. I created an idea. I put myself out there, right? And that's what we're communicating here. The next bullet is talking about, okay, we're using customer service to create a wow experience while sharing information on the types of chocolate. Great. But I want to talk about how did you actually create the wow experience, right? If we go back to the bullet, we talk about how I did it and why I did it. Well, how did they actually create a wow experience? Well, we spent a lot of time studying the history, the ingredients, and the taste profile and the cacao potency of gourmet chocolate. That just sounds fancy, you know what I'm saying? Like, that just sounds exciting. Like, wow, this guy must be really impressive, right? But again, we just literally took one section of that spreadsheet where we were brainstorming that said, what did you achieve and how did you achieve it? Okay? And then we put that in there. And that's what we have here. So we have one bullet that talks about the impact that you achieved and what you did. We have one bullet that talks about how you did it. Okay, and now we have the third bullet, which is like, again, how did you create the wow experience? Is I studied client needs and desires to help them discover new and interesting experiences. So for that person, it really meant we just had a conversation. You walked into my store trying to buy some expensive chocolate, and I just talked to you. I just figured out, what do you want? What are you looking for? Can I help you find something? Are you finding everything okay? What is this for a special occasion? Being able to connect with people like that, even if you're just doing basic administrative stuff and you're only being like, yes, thank you, next in line, it's still a good skill because it shows communication and customer service. And for any internship, you can talk about how you were a front desk or a receptionist and why that is going to make you a good intern, because it does matter, no matter how small you may think it is. Okay. And if you notice here, we cut down the bullets. There are two things that we left off: managing stock and like the cash register. I think that the other bullets were so important and they were so impressive that we don't even need to talk about managing the stock or managing the cash register. That's cool, but what's really exciting is the fact that you know about the different taste profiles of gourmet chocolate. That's a great fun fact that people will want to talk about in the interview. I've had interviews where I'm going with JP Morgan, one of the top investment banks. I think even Diana and I were going on this together. And I'm in the interview trying to convince them why they should hire me for wealth management. And I'm talking about why I love slang. I put on my resume that I'm a slang connoisseur, right? Because I love different slangs. I love talking in accents. I love figuring out what's the slang in Ghana, what's happening in the UK and Jamaica. And I incorporate all of those into my personality, but it helps me keep a very global view, and it helps me understand communication and language, right? But that's something so simple as saying, I just like talking in accents and I like slang. And I used that in an investment banking interview and I got the job, right? Because it's interesting, it's different. You don't hear people talk about that. So again, this guy talking about how he knows everything about chocolate, whatever is unique to you, right? Talk about that, because those are the fun facts that's gonna actually make you stand out and make you more interesting to people, okay? The next thing, if we go to the next experience, which is going to be, again, commercial pre-construct and estimator. So I wanted to show you guys this one because this is something that's very different from sales and from business. This is construction, very technical. So he's like, hey, I manage a project schedule by coordinating subcontractors, resources, and procuring equipment. That's actually a really good bullet. But we want to talk about how many projects, how many subcontractors, how big were the projects? And so that's why you see in the second bullet, we have managed project schedule, 32 subcontractors, and procurement for a $700,000 commercial building that spanned 32,000 square feet. That's a big building. And that's a lot of people that I helped manage. That's a lot different from managing 3 subcontractors for a $7,000 building that's only 300 square feet. But if I didn't see those numbers, I would have never known that you were that awesome. So now if you don't get that job, it's not because you suck. It's just because you didn't put the right stuff on your resume, okay? Next thing, implement and maintain a visual management dashboard for tasks in the estimating department. That is it. I don't really know what a visual management dashboard is. It sounds like it's supposed to be really important, but I don't know, and I would need to know all this extra stuff to understand what he's talking about. So we changed that to implemented workflow management process to improve efficiency and team accountability. So I focused on how this helped the team. It made the team more efficient, and it made the team more accountable, and it helped the team manage their workflow, okay? So that clearly shows the impact, and it shows why what you did mattered. And then it said, I estimated jobs and bids to prepare proposals for contractors and building owners. So we did a similar exercise to the one we did for the chocolate guy. And we said, how many projects did you estimate? How big were those projects? And like how many, like how significant was that? And like why did the company actually need you to estimate those projects? Well, we figured out that you estimated $17 million worth of projects, and we created a bidding strategy. We figured out how do you actually submit the right bid so that the company can get new business. That shows a really, really, really high skill in negotiating and proposals and all that, which is great. And so that's what we wanted to have here. All right. Cool. Man, this was jam-packed. We talked about everything under the sun. I'm so glad that we had a lot of questions and a lot of engagement from you guys. I hope that this was inspiring. I hope that it was valuable for you. I hope that you leave this with more clarity on how to actually create a resume, examples of how to do it, tips for you, and just the motivation to understand what it takes, right? Because it's going to be a process. It's going to take time. You're going to have to do a lot of trial and error. It took me a year and a half of trying every single day until I finally got something that worked. But hopefully you guys, now that you have all these wonderful learnings in this call today, you guys can get a head start and not make the mistakes that me and Diana had to go through, and you guys can achieve all of your goals. And really, like the whole mission of this program is to create the next generation of leaders for West Africa and for Africa as a whole. And each of you deserves to be in that group of people, and you can all do it. And all it takes is a little elbow grease, a little work, but you guys can make it happen. And the resume, being able to sell your experiences, is the first step to doing that, in a corporate sense, in an entrepreneurial sense, or in whatever sense there is. Because even if you don't want a job, you want to start your own business, you got to convince somebody else to give you money. So they're not hiring you, but you got to convince them still. And this is what this is about. So amazing. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Malik.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you, Malik.
No
And
problem.
great hair again. Great hair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Malik. It was really impactful.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
I really loved the session. It was great.
Thank you, guys. I'm glad you loved the session.
Hey, Malik, people are dying for you.
People are dying. It's okay. I'm going to marry all of you. Don't worry. I'm just kidding. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Bye, Malik.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for tuning in.
Bye, Malik.
Bye.